What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we begin our talks on the Phantom Rogue, the spookiest of the sneaky boys, but is this scary good, or is it so bad that it's scary? We'll have to find that out today, but before we do, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Also make sure to share the video with your friends and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So the Phantom Rogue provides us with a spooky, scary version of the Rogue. This is more focused on the spirit world and the souls that are already gone, the souls of the dead, and us harnessing their power. Think kind of like Ancestral Guardians, sort of, but instead of using it for defensive features like what that does, this uses it more for dealing damage and gaining some information. But how does it do when compared to the other subclasses? Let's find out. Starting off at level 3, we get Whispers of the Dead, and this gives us a nice little versatility feature when it comes to our skill proficiencies and also tools. So with this, whenever we finish a rest, we can choose one skill or tool and gain proficiency with that. Once we do it again with a different skill though, we do lose the proficiency that we chose the last time. This is pretty cool, actually. Being able to have a free proficiency in either a skill or tool makes us a lot more versatile. This will allow you to choose on the day or even after lunch what it is that you need to be good at. If you think, okay, well, we're going to go confront someone and I need to lie to that person's face, deception right there is your friend if you didn't have it already. If you are really bad at spotting something and you are going to be on watch, maybe you can take perception. If you're looking very specifically for something and you know that that's what's going to happen here in just a little bit, investigation might be your friend, and so on, of course. So this can really come in handy in making you a lot better in situations that may come up. This works on a long or short rest, so within an hour you can have this switched to anything that you need it to be, which is really not that bad at all. I really do like this, and of course you can do this as many times as you want as long as you can get the rest off. Overall, this isn't bad. I'll give this an 8 out of 10. I like the versatility here. As a rogue, we already get a lot of proficiencies, and this just kind of adds some gravy on top of it, and I can't be upset about that. Also at level 3, we get Wails from the Grave, and this gives us a little bit more damage that we can deal. Sort of. So with this, whenever we deal sneak attack damage to a creature, we can immediately choose another creature that is within 30 feet of that creature. When we do that, we deal half of the sneak attack damage that we just dealt to the first creature, and it is necrotic damage. We can do this a number of times per day, equal to our proficiency bonus, and then of course we get them all back when we finish a long rest. This feature is pretty cool, right? We get to deal extra damage to a different creature that we didn't even attack. It's interesting. It's okay, right? There are a lot of features like this in D&D that came earlier. You know, of course, this came out in Tasha's, so this was after they started figuring out what was okay and what was bad, minus the proficiency bonus being the scale factor for everything. They've kind of backpedaled on that nowadays, but basically, this allows you to deal some extra damage to somebody that's just nearby your original target, which is fine, right? But there are a few things that I'm not the biggest fan of here. The biggest thing is when I'm looking for a really good feature when it comes to damage, usually spread damage is not the first thing I'm looking for unless it's equally high damage across the entire battlefield, right? If I'm looking at a feature like this, I'm saying, okay, instead of dealing extra sneak attack damage to the creature that I aimed at, I'm dealing a little bit of extra damage to a goon, right? If I'm in a boss battle and all the goons are gone, then this feature has no benefit. So it creates this weird situation. I mean, 30 feet is fine. I don't hate the range on this. I think the range is good, but only dealing half your sneak attack damage and it being a limited use also doesn't help us either. So there's a lot that's kind of working against us in this feature. I think the idea is cool, but I think the execution is just a little bit lackluster, unfortunately. I really can't go higher than a 7 out of 10 on this because I just don't think that it's quite got what I want here. I think that it's just it leaves a little bit to be desired, unfortunately. At level 9, we get tokens of the departed, and this is a really interesting and complicated and fun feature. So whenever we take a life, we can actually take a physical token in the form of a soul trinket. You can of course choose what you want these to look like, or you can roll on the table. I'd much rather choose what I want it to look like, but we can have a number of these trinkets equal to our proficiency bonus. There's that proficiency bonus again, and of course if we have our maximum amount, we can't create any more. These trinkets have 3 different uses currently, and this will change a little bit later. So number 1, as long as we have one on us, we have advantage on death saves and constitution saving throws. Very, very nice there. Number 2, when we deal sneak attack damage on our turn, we can destroy one of these soul trinkets, and we can immediately use Wails of the Grave without using one of our uses for the day. Also pretty useful. Then finally, as an action, we can destroy one of these trinkets, and when we do so, we can ask the spirit inside one question. It appears to us and answers in a language that it knew in life, but it is under no obligation to be truthful and answers these questions as concisely as possible. This is an interesting feature, and I like most of it. I like most of it. I think that this trinket system is super cool. I think we should have gotten this at level 3, personally. I think this is something that really gives this subclass a real identity, is snatching these tokens. And I think that over time we could have expanded what the tokens do, but that's just if I were to ride the Phantom Rogue, and we'll have to see. I might be if this subclass doesn't work out. But I think that it's kind of late to be getting something like this, unfortunately, so that doesn't help. But what it can do is pretty neat, giving us a passive death saving throw advantage and a constitution saving throw advantage is pretty nice, especially since we can of course multi-class into about anything, right? We could go cleric, right? It'd be very easy to do that. And now we have bless, and we have advantage on our constitution saving throws when it comes to maintaining concentration. That's pretty great. That's pretty awesome, and that helps us to be a lot better of a support character. So that's something that's really, really easy. We also, of course, get to use Wails of the Grave more, right? Where we were limited to proficiency bonus times per day. Now it's proficiency bonus times per day plus how many soul trinkets. So as long as we are taking souls, then we can continue doing Wails of the Grave indefinitely, technically, which is pretty cool. The final part of this, I think, is the least useful, just because in order to take these tokens, you have to have been right there when the creature died. You have to have been within 30 feet of that creature. So this does limit us in a few ways, right? Because, if we are a sniper, this doesn't really work. You've got to be close to your enemy when it dies. So the sniper archetype doesn't work. The bowmaster from a really, really long range also doesn't work. You basically need to be up in the fray. It's almost telling you need to be in melee here, which can be difficult for a rogue sometimes. That definitely can make this tough. But you've got to be right there. So that creature probably knows that you are the reason that it died, unless you set up some sort of ambush and maybe somebody else in your party does the killing and then you take the soul trinket and all that. But even then, I feel like it's going to be a tough sell to get that soul to tell you the truth and to give you something that's useful. So that could be kind of problematic. I think it could be interesting taking the soul of like the big bad evil guy, for somebody who's playing through Strahd, right? Once you take care of Strahd at the very end, if you trap his soul in the trinket, how does that work? Because he eventually is supposed to reincarnate after so long. How does that work? It's not really talked about in this feature. They don't really tell you what happens to their souls, if they are actually trapped in there or if they're just called back when it doesn't really say. I'm under the assumption that the souls are trapped and can't move on until you decide to do that, which is kind of messed up and gives a whole list of really bad implications. But oh well, you're the spooky rogue, so who cares? I don't know. This just leaves a little bit on the table, in my opinion, that could have been a little bit better. But To me, the passive buff on death saves and constitution saving throws is huge, and being able to use your Whales of the Grave is pretty nice. Even though I don't like Whales of the Grave all that much, I do think it's nice being able to do it more because it is free damage, and maybe you're picking off a goon here or there. If it's unlimited usage, obviously it makes that feature a lot better. So this does help to improve that. So ultimately, I've got to give this an 8 out of 10. I think it's nice. I think it has its limitations though, and so there are certain parts of this that I wish were just a little bit better, and again, I really wish we got this earlier. Level 13, we get Ghost Walk, and this allows us to actually kind of be a ghost, which is pretty cool. So as a bonus action, we can activate this and assume this spectral form. While we are doing this, we have a flying speed of 10 feet, we have hover, and attack rolls have disadvantage against us. That's huge, and we can also move through creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain, but of course we take 1d10 force damage if we end our turn inside a creature or an object. We can stay in this form for 10 minutes, or we can end it early as a bonus action, and we have to complete a long rest or destroy a soul trinket in order to activate this again. This is really cool. This feature is super nice. Again, it's really late to be getting something like this at level 13, but man, it's good. Being able to take on the ghostly form and pass through things is incredibly good for a rogue. Rogues always are trying to put themselves into weird positions, into dangerous situations, and this allows them to do that. And honestly, if you are getting in somewhere difficult, what's a couple d10 worth of force damage? Who cares, right? It's worth it if you get into somewhere you're not supposed to be, and I think that really works out well, and that's totally worth the trade-off. You also have disadvantage on all attacks against you. That is ridiculously good. That makes you so much more bulky, and you have to consider we already had uncanny dodge and evasion by this point, so we already had some amazing features that allowed us to be tanky, sort of. This just makes it even better, which is so wild. I absolutely love it. This is giving me ideas for a rogue tank for sure. There's definitely a way to do this. It's super cool. This is a great feature. I gotta give this a 9 out of 10. I think it's like a 9.5. It's really close to a 10. I think it's really good. Gives us everything that a rogue ever wants, and so I really like this feature. I think it's great. Finally, level 17, we get Death's Friend, and this gives us a couple of boosts to some features that we've had for a little while. So with this, when we use our Whales of the Grave feature, we now can deal the necrotic damage to both the first and second creature. So essentially, we've now multiplied our sneak attack damage by 1.5 times to the original target, which is pretty great. Also, at the end of a long rest, if we do not have a soul trinket already, we gain one for free, which is also pretty nice. Now, this is pretty cool because we now get to use Whales of the Grave on the original creature. And remember back at level 3, I said, when I'm looking at these features, I really want to be able to deal extra damage to the creature that I was aiming at. This allows me to do it. It's level 17, but it allows me to do it. And one more thing about the Whales of the Grave that I didn't mention earlier is that there's no attack roll on this. As long as you hit the first creature, you auto hit with this necrotic damage, which is pretty useful, right? That does help. And being able to gain a soul trinket is pretty nice as well, as long as we finish a rest. This could be interesting if you ended up in a weird situation where you kind of need one, but maybe they are all gone, right? You could destroy them all remotely because they don't have to be on you. And then when you take your next rest, one will appear in your hand. That could be interesting. The other thing is, where did these trinkets come from, and who are you talking to if you destroy one? That's a fun thing to throw on your DM, especially, 17 and later. Your DM is thinking about all of these fights you're having with angels and demons, and here you are, hey, who's this random person that died whose trinket I have? I think that's just kind of funny. Definitely something to talk to your DM about there. But yeah, this is another great feature. Again, it's way too late to be getting something like this. It's level 17 and we're just now getting this. That's a little rough. But it's still a 9 out of 10. It's a very strong feature. It's a really great way to buff this up, and I really like it. I just wish it was earlier. So what do we think of the Phantom Rogue? I know that my opinion on this is controversial, and I know that a lot of people online are not going to like my opinion. I realize that this is a fan favorite, and I see it. I think that the flavor of this subclass is really good. I really like what this subclass does and what it represents. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's not bad. It's definitely not going to fail my ranking. I don't think it deserves a failing grade. But I don't think it's as impressive as what a lot of people end up saying, at least not in comparison to other rogues. Things like the Arcane Trickster, right? The Arcane Trickster gives us a lot more versatility. We get one skill or tool per, and with Arcane Trickster we have magic, which is pretty cool. There's just a lot that the other subclasses can offer, and then there's also one that we haven't quite talked about yet that is much better than this one, and I just don't think that it's quite up to the caliber of the others, and solely because the best features of this subclass don't come until 13 and later. If you are playing this at level 13 or later, I think that my ranking goes up. But the problem is I have to weight the higher scores less so than the earlier scores, because not very many people are playing to 13th level, and even fewer, I mean the number is very small, are playing at level 17, which is wild. I mean, I can see plenty of people wanting to play this with Eve of Ruin, right, which is a 10th through 20th campaign, so you know, people will be playing to 20th level there, but that is very much the exception and not the rule. So I can't assume that this is going to be something that's great. I think in Eve of Ruin, this is going to be a great bring. But I think otherwise, in most campaigns that are going to, you know, 8, 9, 10, I don't think that it's as impressive as what it could be. For that reason, this is going to get a final ranking of a 7 out of 10. I think if you are playing a really high level campaign, then this does do better, and I think the ranking would rise. But I don't think that the extra damage that we're dealing to a creature that's not the target is all that great. I don't think that these soul trinkets, while they are good, I think we get them too late, and so I don't think we get to push them as far as what they could go. I would love to get the soul trinkets at level 3 and then be able to go around and do more things with them as we go. I would love to see a subclass based around the soul trinkets. So let me know in the comments down below if you would like for me, while this passes and is getting a build at the end, if you would like for me to do a bonus episode at the end of the Rogue series where I quote unquote fix it. Like I said, I don't think it needs fixing, but I definitely could see a different way of doing this, and I'm not going to postpone my other subclasses in order to do this, but I could tack this on at the end of the Rogue section and, you know, give us my take on this, and then of course that's more content for all the members, of course. So if you're not a member and want to check out all of my subclass fixes, all of my build guides, all of that is available for you by joining, but it would be something for that as well. So I think it's a good idea, but let me know if there's any interest down in the comments below. So that is our ranking for today. Of course, it does pass, and so we are going to be building one on Friday, and I've got an interesting idea. I've been talking about that I wanted to do something like this from the beginning, and so that this build kind of came together on its own, and I'm excited to show you what I've come up with. But until then, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.